In this video, I'm going to show you step-by-step instructions on how to replace the front screen on the iPhone 8 Plus. To begin the repair, we're going to take a pentalobe screwdriver and remove the two screws either side of the lightning connector at the bottom of the device. Keep those screws safe for reinstallation later. Then take a single-sided razor blade and we're going to create a small gap in between the edge of the screen and the edge of the chassis on the device. And once you've inserted it just a little bit of the way, you can pry it upwards like that to create a larger gap. And in that larger gap now, we can insert a guitar pick or opening pick, just a couple of millimeters, and then slide it along this right hand edge first of all, separating the screen from the chassis, then the bottom edge, and follow it round along onto the left hand edge. You don't need to worry about this top edge because we're going to lift up the screen from the bottom, wiggle it from side to side, and then it should sort of pop open just like that. And then you can open up the screen just like opening a book from a back cover. It'll help you if you use a sturdy object such as a mug behind the screen, just to free up both of your hands. Next, we're going to remove the 4 screws that hold down this shield here, where under there we'll find the battery connector so that we can isolate power from the device. Remove the 4 screws, keep them safe for later, then take some tweezers to remove the shield and a plastic prying tool to disconnect the battery connector just here, followed by this screen connector here and the other one just underneath it here. It's important to use plastic tools when you're doing this because it's very easy to damage these connectors or surrounding components using metal tools. Moving upwards to the top of the motherboard here, remove the 2 tri-wing screws that hold down this other shield. Then use tweezers again to remove the shield, and again with the plastic prying tool to disconnect the connector up here for the ear speaker and front camera. This means that we can now separate the screen from the chassis, and we'll put this to one side whilst we get to work removing the adhesive from the edges of the chassis. It's easiest to peel off as much as you can and use tweezers to help you along with that. But if there are any stubborn bits, you can use a tool like this X-Acto blade just to scrape off any of those harder to remove parts. Continue removing the adhesive from all the edges of the device. Then once all the adhesive is removed, we can just use a brush with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol on there or contact cleaner just to remove any remaining bits of dirt, dust, grime or general sticky stuff. Now we can peel off the back sheet of the adhesive seal, then line up in the top left corner of the seal, follow it along the left hand edge, making sure that it lines up nicely, and then the rest of the seal should follow and secure down real easy. Use a plastic spudger to secure down the rest of the seal, making sure that it's secured, stuck down well, and it's not going to peel off. Then remove the top sheet. Just to note that most adhesive seals might not look like this, what come with the screen, but they're usually very similar in that they have a top sheet, a backing sheet, and then depending on its quality, it might have a final peel on there, which we'll remove just before we seal the screen down. There's a couple of small parts that we need to remove from the broken display. So this top ear speaker and front camera flex cable needs to be removed, as well as the Touch ID and home button from the bottom. It's very important not to damage this component because it is not replaceable. So just remember that. So just be very careful when you remove this. There should be a crosshead screw here, but there isn't, not to worry. Instead, let's remove the 4 tri-wing screws that hold down this little bracket for the home button. They're all the same size, so don't worry about muddling those ones up. Remove the bracket with some tweezers. Now we need to disconnect the home button from the screen. Use a plastic spudger and just get in the gap here and sort of twist the spudger so that it disconnects it, because it's connected to this flexible flex cable just here, and it can be awkward. Now you can use a heat gun or a hairdryer to warm up and soften the adhesive holding down the home button. I've got my heat gun set to 200 degrees C, and I'm just going to hover over it for 30 seconds, keeping it moving to soften that adhesive underneath. Then once it's warm, we're going to take the plastic spudger, and notice that where I start here, where the flex cable bends underneath itself or over itself, and then you can just lift up, slide it under, and then the home button should pop out just like that. Like I said, keep this safe and we'll reinstall it on the new screen in just a minute. Before we do that, we need to remove this top ear speaker, and that's held down by a few crosshead screws. Keep these organized because they are all different sizes. I think there's 5 in total. I usually just lay them out the way that I remove them, and it makes it nice and easy. Now take your tweezers and remove this metal bracket off the top here. Then we need to lift out the camera and fold that over itself, and we can use the tweezers to lift out the ear speaker just there. Sometimes you might find that this needs brushing off. This one's clean though, so we're going to leave that as it is for now. Now we're going to take the heat gun again, and we're going to soften the adhesive that holds down this ear speaker and the sensors. These sensors are quite sensitive to being agitated, so it is important to warm up this area. Don't just go at it without warming it up, but like I said, you can use your mom's hairdryer to do this as well. And then once it's softened and warm, we can get underneath this bit first with the sharp tweezers, just to sort of separate it from the back of the screen, and we're lifting it up, and eventually it'll all come out quite nicely, just like that. This screen can now be discarded, and as always, I will post a link for the new screen in the description below. This is an aftermarket LCD, and we'll begin reversing the steps that we've just taken, starting off by reconnecting this front camera and sensor array. I always line up these bits first because there's some little holes for them to sit into, then the microphone, and then these 2 sensors. They can be quite awkward and they need folding into the little bracket there. But once it's in and lined up, just use your thumb to hold it in place, and we can attach the ear speaker now. Again, hold it in place with your thumb, or your other thumb this time. Then we can fold over the front camera. Again, you know what we're going to do. We're holding it in place with your thumb because all this stuff is quite springy and it will pop out if you let go of it. So you have to be a little bit dexterous here, and it is a little bit awkward, but we're going to place the metal bracket on top now, holding it down with your thumb again, just whilst you get 1 or 2 screws in place to re-secure it down. I think once that's in, then we can let go with our thumb now. Get the rest of those crosshead screws in place, making sure that they're nice and tight. And then we'll move down to the home button, which for a lot of people tends to be the crux of this repair. If you follow my instructions though, it is very simple. Usually these screens will have like a plastic film on it. Just peel that back, hold it down with your finger, and then we're going to thread this home button flex cable first from the front side of the screen through to the back, and like line it up with that hole just here. And then I always just let that fold back down, and that's going to hold it in place and stop it from spinning around. To line up this cable now, we're just going to get underneath it, and I'm going to lift it up with a spudger, let that sit underneath. The cable's going to come down here, and then we're going to just fold it over and connect it up. You might find that in this case, they don't line up well, but you can just give this bottom connector a little nudge with your spudger to line it up so that it connects and clips into place as it should do. And I could obviously do 100 of these off camera and there'd be no problems. And then as soon as I hit record, it's going to be awkward. But that's secure now. Make sure that you push it down. Don't use metal tools when pushing these down because you can damage them. Now we can line up this shield and the 4 screws that hold it down. Don't forget, if you like repair content just like this, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. And if you're having a go at this repair yourself, let me know how you get on in the comments below. I'm just going to guess if this is, I had a screw on sitting on my desk. And it looks like that one's good, just to replace that screw that was missing before. Now I'm going to remove the plastic film off the back of this screen, and we can get the chassis now, lay that flat on the desk, and offer up, first of all, the smaller of the two screen connectors. Line it up and push it down with your thumb. This again is awkward and it comes with practice. That I'll line it up straight away and secure it down. I understand that it will be a little bit more difficult for some, but once you've got that small one down, then follow it up with the larger one. You can see I'm struggling a little bit to get that lined up and secured. This is what it's going to look like for you probably, but once you've got it in place, you can just apply some pressure and push it down with your thumbnail or your thumb. Now I'm going to put the mug behind the screen again just to lean it up, and then for this one, because it's sort of bent already, I always use the tweezers to help me line it up, and once that's lined up like that, we can apply pressure again to secure it down. If you're unsure whether it's secure or not, just push it with the top edge of the spudger, and then we can get that little shield that held it down. Line that up there, and then there was two tri-wing screws. Both of these are the same size, and they can re-secure that shield into place. Now we're really nearly getting there now. Just as a little side note, you will notice that I don't test this screen. That's just for the sake of the video. Before you put these shields on, it is probably a good idea just to test that the screen works okay before securing everything down. Now we can reattach the battery. Then it's this larger shield on top of that, and the 4 screws that hold this down are all crosshead screws. The longer of the 4 goes in this bottom left corner first. Always put the long one in first, and then the 3 small ones can go in here, here, and here. Just perform a quick visual check to make sure that there's no screws that we've missed out, and then we can remove the final layer of that adhesive if your dust and moisture seal has one, and fold the screen down like that. Then to secure it down, we just need to line it up with the top edge and give it a squeeze to close it up. And finally, those 2 pentalobe screws to secure the screen down at the bottom of the device. And finally, I'm going to plug it in to turn it on, and hopefully we'll get some display now. It's always a nervous sort of 5 seconds or so waiting to see if it's going to actually power on. So it looks like we've got image on the screen. We're locked out for the next 3 hours, but we can press the emergency button and you can see we've got touch. The home button works. I should be able to call the device and make sure that we can hear things from the ear speaker and that the top sensor works properly. I'll do that off camera, of course, but that just about completes this repair. Thank you for watching and see you next time.